Today is Saturday, March 6th, 2021, which means it's Derelict Saturday. Hello, fiendlings, how the hell are ya? I would have had this episode out yesterday, but I got caught up in a code NATO for a client, and, well, long story short, yeah. I don't have much news to add this week, other than I'm cranking on some software projects and getting the writing in when my brain is functioning. I think we often forget how much our brain and physical health are interlinked. When one isn't working right, it can adversely affect the other. In short, I'm still struggling to get into a new regimen, break old habits, and get better. You know, that's just depressing. So, in the meantime, how about we get to some more story? Be safe, have a great week, and we'll talk again real soon. Here's episode 14 of Derelict Trident. Chapter 21. Noble, his leg still occasionally aching from the damage it had taken at Mira while he fought off a starfish, found his mag-walking abilities to be less than stellar. It would take him a while to get used to the newly grown muscle tissue and ligaments. His knee, calf, and hamstring were tight for now, but the more he moved, the more relaxed everything would become. Still, it sucked. His nannies, relatively fresh, were manufacturing micro-cocktails for his nervous system to make the discomfort go away, but they weren't fast enough for his liking. What he really needed was a day or two off his feet. "Like, that's gonna fucking happen," he muttered.
"You say something, sir?"
Murdoch said over the comms. Noble cursed. He'd left his damned mic on. He exited S&R Black's cargo bay airlock and saw the Marines standing near the printer stations. Exactly where Noble had told him to wait. If he were in Murdoch's position, told to stay in the rear with the gear, he would have been pissed. He imagined the youngster was angry as hell and humiliated all at the same time. If the kid was smart, he'd keep his mouth shut and do his job. Otherwise, Noble would have to be an officer rather than an engineer. He fucking hated that idea. Black Company's hangar was brightly lit, but it still felt eerie. There would normally be the hum of machinery, the occasional distant bang of construction or repairs, and even the occasional announcement over the PA. The lack of background noise, the lack of gravity, and the lack of anything living made it feel like a tomb. The hangar's emergency generator had brought the lights back up, but nothing else. Even the hollow screens were dead. The photons chasing away the darkness should have made him feel better. Instead, it made him wonder when the lights would, in fact, go out. "Stop being a scared little kid," he told himself. Callie Moore and her squad made it through Mira with no light. Just be happy you've got that. "All right, Private," Noble said, desperately trying to keep a shiver from his voice. "We need materials. Lots and lots of materials."
"Aye, sir."
He pointed to the hoppers. "Go take a look and tell me what we have."
"Aye, sir."
The Marine turned and walked to the large rectangular receptacles. Noble had already done the calculations for their material needs. The captain wanted 3 new skiffs and another SV-52. Noble had also been toying with some new design ideas for both craft in light of their recent run-ins with the alien creatures. They might help in the next fight. Or with my luck, he said to himself, they'll help the creatures instead. Yeah, that was a cheery thought. That little voice was one that could just fuck off for the time being, thank you very much. They weren't safe here in this hangar. They weren't safe anywhere on Trident Station. He wasn't sure there was a safe place left in the damn solar system. Still, there was no place for doubt, no place for second guesses, and absolutely no time to lose his shit. Yes, all that bravado sounded great, like common sense, in fact. Which is why, of course, it did little to make the tingles crawling up and down his spine to slow their endless loop. Noble tried to connect his block to the printers and received no signal. Eyebrow raised, he leaned forward and tapped the status button. A single ping registered on his block. He read the status, face etched in a deep frown. The printers, it seemed, were unpowered. The remaining stored power had all but dissipated, leaving that last ping just for him. A fault in the connections had rendered them inoperable. He exhaled a sigh of relief. A disruption in power he could deal with. If the wave had fried them, that would have been much, much worse. They could print using S&R Black's printer, but it would be slow going. Also a pain in the ass to bring in that much material. Besides, they were almost empty on fuel and running the printers was only going to take more of it. He hoped they had enough power to keep the scientists from thawing out, where things were really going to get fun.
Sir?
Murdoch called out.
I'm sending you the inventory.
The message popped up on Noble's HUD. Not much of an inventory. They had enough materials for 1.5 skiffs and a single hull plate patch for S&R Black. Or 3 hull plates for the ship and nothing for the Marines. They were even more screwed when it came to component material. If he hadn't been wearing a combat suit, he would have been rubbing at his eyes in weary futility. If Calimora struck out in the other hangars, they'd have to break into the quartermaster deck and... He shook his head. Of course they'd have to break into the QM modules. It was the only place on the station where armaments were stored. Even without power, it'd be locked down tight. Without the trio powered up and in the right mood, he wasn't even sure they could get in there. Shut up, he told himself. Anything else, Murdoch?
No, sir.
Noble sighed and slowly turned to survey the hangar. It was uncharacteristically empty, as if it had been closed down and sealed after S&R Black had left for Pluto what seemed like 1,000 years ago. It made no sense, really. The SFN engineers, the maintenance crew for all of Trident Station, had a habit of prepping a bay for a ship's return the moment after it had departed. Noble knew why they did it. To slack off. If they waited until the ship came back, they often ended up performing double duty, since normal procedure was for 2 ships to always be in port, while they busted ass to get one ship ready to leave while busting ass to ready for a ship's arrival. So instead of working like the devil while under a deadline, they spent the time in between slowly building up a reserve of supplies and maintenance plans. Noble didn't blame them. Hayes wasn't a good administrator. His policies made no damn sense, and if you spent enough time around him, something Noble wouldn't recommend, you quickly realized the colonel was not much more intelligent than a slab of Atmos steel. You also fervently hoped he'd retire before he got someone killed. Trident Station was hardly the jewel of the Sol Federation, but Noble doubted anywhere else ran as well, despite Hayes. Well, in truth, it was more like in spite of him. So long as the trio did their part, Trident Station was manageable without a competent administrator. Since SF-Gov was unlikely to buttress the isolated station with more personnel, Noble didn't see the situation changing. The S&R companies managed themselves. The engineering crews managed themselves. Maintenance, comms, you name the department, it managed itself with a little help from the trio. Or, in some cases, a lot. So the supplies should have been here. The maintenance pods should have already been set up, standard repair and rebuild kits bolted to the deck, all waiting patiently for a ship to arrive. Instead, nothing. They hadn't done a damn thing, and the hangar looked as though it had never been used. Murdoch?
Aye, sir?
The Marine sounded a little nervous. Probably his first time being with an officer, all by himself. How many times have you been in this hangar? Noble asked. There was a brief pause, and he could almost hear Murdoch trying to figure out how to answer the question. Finally, Murdoch said,
4 or 5 times, sir?
Right. Noble held up an index finger. I'm guessing that means you've never refueled Black before.
No, sir.
Noble rubbed his gloves together. So just in case we have to do this the hard way, let's get Black some juice.
Sir? How are we going to do that without power?
Ah, Noble said with a grin beneath his visor. Let's educate you. Chapter 22. Well, Dickerson thought, here we are again. Only that wasn't quite true. Instead of 3 Marines and 1 missing a hand, they now had 5 Marines, including the corporal, all armed with tritium rounds, all with undamaged combat suits, and carrying as many claymores as they could fit in their pouches. In other words, this was as safe as it was going to get. Yet that didn't seem like much. The hangar, dim in the baleful glow of the emergency lights, was far brighter than any portion of Mira had been, but the shadows still appeared foreboding. He wondered if Carb and Calimora felt the same way. The corporal had replaced Murdoch with Copenhaver, but had left Dickerson together with Carb. The private would run with Wendt. Dickerson thought that had been an excellent decision. The private knew Wendt from their time in Gunny's squad, and that meant they'd already bonded to a certain degree. Dickerson hoped. Carb mag-walked to the side of the pressure door, and Dickerson took the other side, his hand near the lever. Wendt covered the other passage with Copenhaver while Calimora was smack in the middle, her rifle pointed at the pressure door.
Beta?
She said over the comms.
We're green, boss. Alpha?
Ready to rock, Corporal, Dickerson said. Callie Moore readjusted the rifle in her hands.
Open it.
Dickerson took a deep breath and punched the manual release. The large pressure door swung open in deafening silence. Copenhaver sidestepped to get a better angle inside the hangar, her suit lights unfocused to provide more ambient light.
Clear,
Carb said. Dickerson mag-walked until he had a better angle. The entryway to the next hangar appeared clear. Well, clear of hostiles and corpses, anyway. Clear, Dickerson said.
Beta, watch our backs,
Kalimura said.
Copy, boss.
Wynn said.
Alpha, move in. Copy,
Carb said, and Mag walked through the doorway. Dickerson waited a beat before following her, making sure to put 2 meters of space between them. He turned and cleared the bulkhead's side, his suit lights lancing through the gloom. The hangar's printers filled that side along with crates of 3D printer mass. Anything could be hiding in there. Starfish, pine cones, dead frozen bodies. Anything. His heart rate quickened at the thought, and he could practically feel the bio-nannies sitting atop his adrenal glands, waiting for the moment to accelerate the release of the chemical into his bloodstream. This side clear, he said. But the printers are blocking my view.
Copy,
Carb said. Her lights rose until the ambient glow spread across the ceiling.
Nothing above.
She rotated, refocused her lights, and searched the area down the hangar.
A lot of shit in here, boss. Supplies and packing material floating free. Good,
Callie said.
Beta, I'm going in. Cover the hatch. Copy, boss.
Kalimura was now in sight of his rear cam. Good. He turned and peered out over the rest of the hangar. Not for the first time, he was damned glad to be tall. He cursed when he saw the rest of the hangar and realized what he was seeing. S&R Red's hangar bay had small mazes of crates on the far side. Some appeared open, but it was difficult to tell in the crushing darkness.
Dickerson, let's get some power on in here.
Aye, boss, he said, and Mag walked to the printers. The surface of the large rectangular devices glinted in the light from his suit. The shadows gathered at the edges of the light, twisting and morphing with every step. He gritted his teeth and willed his heart to slow, but he couldn't help but expect something to jump at him. There, that shadow looked like a pine cone, another like the arm of a starfish. Carapaces that absorbed every bit of light, that were so black they were nearly impossible to see even when light shined directly on them. 3 meters, he said to himself. 3 meters to the crank. Carb had his back. Kalimura had his back. Wint and Murdoch would make sure the bad guys didn't get behind them. He was as safe as he was going to be. Too bad his heart didn't feel that way. His light passed over the luminous paint above a recessed panel. The words "Emergency Power" lit up in bright green, and he exhaled a sigh. Nothing in the shadows. Nothing waiting to attack him. Nothing out of the ordinary. The panel opened easily beneath his maglov's field. He found the crank and began quickly turning it. The generator kicked over twice, the status light flashing red. He cranked a few more times, and the status light blinked yellow. The bulkhead vibrated beneath his glove as the generator finally came to life. The large hangar's overheads burped with dim white light before settling into a steady glow. We're green, Corporal, Dickerson said.
Thank the void,
Carb whispered. Dickerson turned from the panel and stared out over the hangar. Dozens of supply crates stood stacked on the deck. There was a pattern to how they were laid out, but Dickerson had no idea what it was. Unless... Carb? When was Red Company supposed to go on patrol?
2 weeks after we left.
2 weeks. He did the math. We were 10 days getting to Pluto and 10 days back. That would have put their departure sometime after we were underway to Neptune.
What's your point, Dickerson?
Kalimura asked. He pointed at the stacks of crates. I think the SFN maintenance crew was getting Red ready for her patrol. Something happened. Dickerson didn't bother saying what he thought that something might be. If Red left without all her supplies loaded, she obviously wasn't headed for patrol duty. More likely, she was sent on a relatively short trip, no more than a day at most.
You think they scrambled her to take on the KBOs?
Carb asked. Yep, Dickerson said. Either that or something else bad happened.
Cut the chatter,
Kalimura said.
Let's see if they left anything for us.
Copy, Dickerson said. Kelly-Mora and Dickerson searched the hangar in sections, with Carb always a few meters behind them, her focus directed on possible threats from above as well as the front of the hangar. Dickerson used his block to scan the labels on the crates, slowly building an inventory of what was left. "Plenty of printer mass," Dickerson said. 7 crates of it. That's not counting whatever's in the hoppers.
Good,
Kelly-Mora said.
Captain wants a few skiffs and another SV-52.
"Another one?" Dickerson asked. "We still have the scientists on board in stasis. Where the void does he think he's going to put all of that?"
Not my job to ask.
Kelly-Mora said.
Nor yours.
"Copy, boss," Dickerson said. She's being more professional than usual, he thought. Or maybe after Mira, she wanted a sense of control. Or maybe, just maybe, this is how she really is when not being chased through corridor after corridor by aliens. The rest of the crates included a patrol's worth of nutrient supplies, bio-nannies, and spare ship parts, even a few spare suits, but no ammunition. They found a stack of crates all marked as such, but each was empty. "They didn't go on patrol," Dickerson said.
No,
Kelly-Mora agreed.
but they were armed to the teeth.
Carb sighed through the comms.
Anyone else get the feeling we missed the party?
She said. "Copy that," Dickerson said. "Whatever happened here, we missed it."
Dickerson,
Kelly-Mora said.
send Lieutenant Noble a list of what we found.
"Ah," Dickerson said. He initiated a block connection to Black and sent a message containing the hangar's inventory. "Sent,"
Went?
Kelly-Mora said.
Aye, boss. Still clear back here. No movement. Copy.
Dickerson pointed to the hangar door more than 100 meters from them. "So Red gets out of here in a hell of a hurry, but why is the barn door partway open?"
Good question.
Kelly-Mora said.
In an emergency situation, the hangars are supposed to be locked down so nothing comes in and nothing goes out. Yeah.
Carb said.
Can't imagine Colonel Hayes allowing this.
"Another question for Black," Dickerson said. In the dim emergency lights, the hangar bay hatch appeared little more than a few meters open, but it was enough. A human being, let alone an exosolar life form, could easily make their way inside through the crack. Unless they were trying to flush the area, maybe?
Flush it of what?
Carb said.
You saying someone didn't feel like taking out the trash? Corporal.
Noble said over the squad comms.
Got your list. No ammo? No, sir.
Kelly-Mora said.
We're going to check blue next. Copy.
Noble said.
Well,
Carb said.
I guess it's time for blue?
Kelly-Mora turned in place and faced the pressure hatch at the other side of the hangar.
Time for blue.
She agreed.
Went, Copenhagen, we're heading to blue. Move up. Copy, boss.
Went said.
Dickerson,
Kelly-Mora said.
You want to do the honors?
"Got nothing better to do," he drawled. Before the corporal could say anything, he walked to the pressure hatch. On his suit's cam feed, he saw Carb and Kelly-Mora standing side by side, watching him go.